Warning: the following program is a 42-minute presentation from Onyx customers and prospective customers on investment opportunities in physical silver bullion and silver coins. We encourage you to watch this program in its entirety. Guests appearing in this program speak openly, candidly, and quite strongly about their opinions on the long-term fundamentals of silver. Short-term technical analysis is also a tool that should be considered by investors in silver, but is not part of this presentation. At the conclusion of this program is important disclosure information which should be carefully read and understood by all viewers. If you have any questions about the content of this program or would like to receive short-term technical analysis tools from Monex, such as up-to-date price charts, etc., please contact a Monex account representative.
The following program features exclusive interviews with leading economists, analysts, and precious metals experts. What they say about the exceptional profit opportunity right now in silver may be the most valuable and timely investment information you have ever received.
This is the most important place to invest. If you understand the art of investing and you want to time it, you're timing it now.
It's very easy to make a case that we are in what's called a super bull, or a secular bull market, which is going to last decades.
What we've seen so far is gold and silver being re-legitimized as investment classes.
Silver may be the best positioned asset on the board to appreciate because of its supply and demand dynamic, because of its industrial uses.
Electronics has clearly been the most exciting growth area for silver use.
It's used in 1,000 different places. It's used in televisions, cameras, cell phones, batteries, computers, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of different applications.
As far as I can see, most of the above ground inventories are gone. And when we reach that inflection point, the price is going to skyrocket.
You're going to find a paper price on silver that is absolutely going to be unbelievable at the peak of this market.
This thing should be selling for over 100 right now, but it's not. What a bargain!
Monex, America's trusted name in precious metals for nearly 40 years, presents Why Silver? Why now? Silver, an exceptional investment opportunity for the 21st century. Now, here's your host, former Financial News Network anchor, Derek Partridge.
Welcome to our program. What you are about to see and hear is information that could literally transform your financial future. We will be revealing current economic and market conditions in the U.S. and around the world that many investment advisors, maybe even your own broker, would prefer that we do not divulge. However, what cannot be concealed is the fact that more and more of the world's wealthiest, most successful investors have quietly taken positions in a precious metal that many feel offers a rare, even life-changing opportunity. That investment is silver. On this program, you'll discover why silver is such an extraordinary investment opportunity. Now, let's meet our guests. From Colbert, Washington, author, economist, and noted precious metals expert, David Morgan. From London, England, Philip Clapwick, Executive Chairman of GFMS, widely acknowledged as the leading source of information on the precious metals markets. From Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, CEO of Hecla Mining and also President of the Silver Institute in Washington, D.C., Phillips Baker. From Pinellas Park, Florida, and the Smith Consultant Group, author, economist, and publisher Richard Doughty. From Vancouver, British Columbia, Ross Beatty, Chairman of Pan American Silver Corporation. From Grass Valley, California, Jason Hommel, editor, publisher, and precious metals analyst. From Toronto, Ontario, John Embry, Chief Investment Strategist for Sprott Asset Management, and noted economist Patricia Moore of Scotiabank. And from Spokane, Washington, Vice President of Mines Management Incorporated, Doug Dobbs. Many informed investors who have studied silver bull markets know that historically, when silver makes its move, it can appreciate quite rapidly, often producing startling returns over a relatively short period of time. So the question is, are we at a time in history when silver is poised to make one of its spectacular advances? On this program, the experts we interviewed will help answer that question. We begin our program by comparing the performances of the Dow Jones Industrial Average, gold, and silver over the past few years. The following numbers are quite revealing. Between July 2003 and October 2006, the Dow Jones Industrial Average increased 34.2%. gold solidly outperformed the Dow, showing an increase of 69.3%. But what may come as a surprise to many investors is the fact that silver outdistanced them both, up more than 158%. What's more, it appears as if this early move in silver could be just a hint of things to come.
It's very easy to make a case that we are in what's called a super bull, or a secular bull market, which is going to last decades. And in the last, say, 150 years, we've seen three of those. There was one just before the First World War, driven by the expansion of Europe into the rest of the world. Tremendous growth in metal demand and strong growth that lasted for 20 or 30 years. There was another one after the Second World War, the 50s, the 60s. It went for about 25 years, and it ended in the early 70s, really, with the oil shock. But in that period, you had this great industrialization led by America, post-war industrialization that went on for decades. We are in one of those right now. So this is not going to be a 4-year bull market. I think this is going to go on for a long, long time. Obviously, I can't say when it will end, and it will end because the world is a secular metal markets do evolve in cycles. But I would make a very good case for this lasting a long, long time, and in the order of 10 to 20 years.
I think that there's a very, very safe case to be said for a potential long-term bull market well beyond the normal 3 to 5 year cycle. But more than anything, this is a secular bull market that could last more than a decade or even several decades.
Indeed, it appears as if a silver bull market is underway, and not surprisingly, some of the world's most successful value investors, men like Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, and George Soros, were among the first to spot the latest opportunity in silver, an opportunity in a silver bull market that appears to be just now gathering steam.
What we've seen so far is gold and silver being re-legitimized as investment classes for, let's say, professional investors, for funds, for institutions. The public, though, the general public, the general investing public, has not yet caught on to this concept. More people are looking at it in terms of seeing news reports. They're understanding to a limited extent what's going on, but by no means have we yet seen a flood of interest from retail or private investors. And therefore, I think you do have, for both gold and silver, the potential for a significant weight of new money to come in from private investors, which has yet been untapped.
Perfect opportunity, because what you've already got is you've got the solid, strong hands are in the market. They're not letting go. You've built a solid base. The consolidation has taken place, so all the weak sisters are out. They were traders anyway. We don't want them in the market. Now you're in the growth phase. This is the most important place to invest. If you understand the art of investing and you want to time it, you're timing it now.
Indeed, many of our experts feel that silver's recent performance is just the start of what could be a powerful and historic move. Beyond this early momentum, what is it that makes silver such a compelling investment opportunity? Let's take a close look at the growing factors lining up to drive the compelling case for silver. To many economists who study the silver market, it's not surprising that silver is starting to surge, as the fundamentals of supply and demand are at the heart of any rapidly appreciating commodity. In the case of silver, as more and more industrial applications have been discovered, silver mining has been insufficient to meet yearly demand for 16 straight years. This fact alone bears close scrutiny, as this silver production deficit is unprecedented in history.
There's been more demand for silver than there has been new supply from the mines for 20 years. The government has been filling that gap. Metal's running out. Demand's not going to go down because it's needed for so many things.
Supply and demand of any commodity have to equal. They do. And we've had a deficit in silver for 16 consecutive years from 1990 to 2005. And the way that that deficit that I'll define for you has been met is through above ground supplies. And the deficit simply means that the amount of silver that is mined from all mining activity has not met that annual demand. So not to belabor the point, to make it very clear, in 1990 X amount of silver was mined, but amount X plus an amount was needed. And that happened every year for 16 straight years. The amount mined did not match the amount demanded by the marketplace. the supply and demand did equal because the above ground stockpile has been eaten away again and again and again. So now again the supply side is not meeting the demand, so the squeeze in the silver price has started to take effect already, and I believe it will accelerate in the future.
You've had a period of probably the best part of 20 years of a rundown in silver stocks. Silver bullion stocks now are at significantly lower levels than they were 10, 20 years ago. And that means that it's a situation where if you start to see fresh demand for bullion, fresh investment demand coming from institutional or private investors, that is putting pressure on that stock and leading to a significant increase in silver prices.
Where is the silver going to come from when people start buying it from the investment side? There's not much out there, so what's going to happen is a rapidly rising price, and that's what happens when there's shortages of things. And if there's two ways you can allocate things, basically, it's first come, first serve, and shortages, or there's a rapidly rising price.
That is the appeal of silver. It's just the potential of it going through the roof. There's an argument to be made that silver will sell at a premium to gold. Why? Because gold is produced, but it's not consumed. All the gold that's ever been mined is basically still around somewhere. Silver has been consumed. It's lost, gone forever. There are no stockpiles of silver anywhere left in the world that anyone can actually put a finger on. That is the unique opportunity of silver. It is a great opportunity for anybody that wants to make a hell of a lot of money in the coming years, as far as I'm concerned.
The demand is going to clearly outrun the mine supply, and with the above ground inventories depleted, the thing that the arbiter in the whole case is going to be the price. I mean, the price can only go one way when it's going to be up. And I mean, depending on your thoughts on this, it depends on how high it's going to go. It's just not a matter of, the only question is how high it's going to go. The fact is it's going up.
For the last decade, we've actually utilized more silver than has been taken out of the ground. And what's happened is there was an overhanging surplus that has existed from the 1980s. Now, most of that surplus has been taken out of the market. Now, in order to offset the deficit, silver has to be drawn in from investors. And in order to get investors to sell their silver into the market, price has to appreciate. So we're in an environment right now where demand is exceeding supply and the overhanging surplus has been eliminated. It's the perfect environment for a market to appreciate.
The fact that silver is in very short supply only begins to set the stage for the compelling case for silver. It's also important to note that the world is more and more dependent on silver and its unique properties.
Silver is really a digital metal. Very few people understand that silver is used in virtually every digital product, from cameras, digital cameras, to computers, to laptops. All chips have silver in them. Silver is the most conductive metal. So it's used in all things electrical and electronic. That whole industry sector is almost new, but it's growing like mad. So there's a huge driver of silver. In fact, the biggest driver of silver right now is electronics and electrical applications. Incredible growth, double-digit growth.
Electronics has clearly been the most exciting growth area for silver use because that's really where the ounces have been most significantly added. And you're seeing silver incorporated in a wide range of devices, anything from keypads to screens, to mobile phone shielding. There's significant uses for silver which have been developed in recent years, and as the number of those devices increases, as production of these devices increases, so does the silver usage increase significantly. It does have a myriad of uses which essentially are derived from its very special properties, and these, I think, are only going to grow in future.
It's used in water purification. It's used in air purification in hospitals. Huge new applications in the health field for silver. That's a neat application, very unique to silver because it kills bacteria, but it's perfectly harmless to mammals, such as people. Silver it has enormous prospects in superconductivity, a brand new way of conducting large amounts of electricity in very small spaces. So Detroit today is powered by superconductors, which go through the conduits in downtown Detroit. And that is an industry that has potential to just explode. those superconducting wires are sheathed in silver. Why silver? Because it's unique again. What it does to the superconductor technology is unique to silver. So it's used in large amounts in that industry, which is a growing industry.
You've got the electronics uses, which is sort of the most amazing thing about silver, because it ends up being in the camera that's taking our picture. It ends up being in the CD that picture, that video goes onto. It ends up being in the washing machine, all of the electronics that you have in your house. Everything will have that has electrical components will have a bit of silver.
If you look back over a decade or so, what you find was industrial demand is around 35% of the total silver market. Today, the industrial demand is around 45% of the silver demand. And what that means is that it's the fastest growing segment, and it's the most important segment from the standpoint of most of the applications in industrial demand are not retrievable economically to get the silver back out.
Silver right now has just the strongest wind behind it. Silver is a little different than other metals for two reasons. Firstly, on the demand side, silver is both a precious metal like gold, and it's also an industrial metal like zinc and copper and nickel. It's a precious metal. It follows the price of gold, usually. It tends to be a haven kind of currency. It's used as money in much of the world's history. So it's a true precious metal, and it'll rise and fall with global concerns. It tends to be inversely correlated, for example, with the US dollar right now. So it will tend to follow gold, and all the forces that are in the gold market right now are very strong. I would not be surprised to see gold hit $1,000 this cycle at all. Lots of strength behind gold, and thus, because silver is a precious metal, plenty of strength behind silver as a precious metal, as money. But happily, unlike gold, silver is also a very, very, very important industrial metal. It's used in I look around this room, it's used in 1,000 different places. It's used in televisions, cameras, cell phones, batteries, computers, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of different applications, which are vital ingredients of our industrial life. 45% of silver use is industrial. So as the world expands, as industrial production grows, that stimulates demand for silver. So it's got great forces right now. As Asia is expanding, as Europe is expanding, 2005 was, I think, one of the strongest global growth years, in decades. Very, very good for silver because it's used in all of these industrial applications.
Certainly, silver is a critical commodity needed for worldwide economic development. In fact, our experts report that worldwide demand for silver is rapidly increasing as silver plays a vital role in the expanding economies of the 21st century.
As president of the Silver Institute, I've gone to China as part of a major conference that the Silver Institute has had for the last 5 years in China. And I don't remember the specific statistics, but the demand for silver within China has grown exponentially over the course of the past 5 years. And that economy is just remarkable, the growth that's happening across that country, where people are going from, we had a guide who grew up with a dirt floor, and he now has he lives in a house that's 3 stories, and they have indoor plumbing and all the things that we have in the Western world. They're starting to get there.
We have China, which has been economically oppressed for so long, and now they're booming. So that Chinese people, historically, relatively recently, like a few years ago, used about 1/70th the amount of silver per person than the person in the United States does. And if China begins to use 70 times more silver per person, industrial demand will about triple. And industrial demand is already consuming more silver than we're mining today.
Their emergence as a major manufacturing force with tremendous growth in industrial activity, huge infrastructure investment in China in things like railways, electric generation. All of this is very metal intensive, and with a huge also shift in the manufacturing activity for electronic products, even things like televisions, air conditioners. A great deal of this production now occurs in China, and microwave ovens, and you tend to use a lot of metals in all of these manufactured goods, and I think that really has propelled their importance in terms of the metal industry around the world.
I am very, very much of the view that Asia growth in demand is just beginning. You know, there's 1.3 billion Chinese, there's 1 billion Indians, there's 200 million in Indonesia. I mean, it's a vast source of demand for all metals, not just silver. And it's an economy basically that is moving from an agricultural economy to an industrial economy. Their consumption of most metals is a tiny fraction of what it is in North America. Even if they went to only 1/50th or 1/40th of our consumption per capita, that still represents a huge increase in demand pretty much across the board for silver, for gold, for lead, for zinc, for nickel, and so forth.
When you consider that there are probably millions and millions and millions of people in China, they don't have refrigerators, they don't have air conditioners in their homes, they don't have a lot of things that we take for granted here in the United States. They don't have lighting, and as their standard of living rises, they want these products. It's going to make life more comfortable for them. And these are just everyday aspects of life, or aspects of everyday life that we deal with. And you look at what we've consumed here in this country, and it's not going to be any different in those countries if the standards of living continue to rise. And so, you know, electric motors, cellular telephones, computers, you know, water purification in China and India is probably more of an issue there than it has ever been here. And the ability to use silver for filtration of water and purification of nearly everything that we deal with, coatings, whether it's in restaurant kitchens and things of that sort, or surgical rooms, operating rooms in hospitals, as an antimicrobial, it's a very effective product for that. And you're going to have all of that built in China if this continues, you know, for many, many, many generations.
It's a secular event. It's a once-in-a-lifetime event of people moving from the villages and the countryside into cities, needing housing, needing all the periphery around housing, the utilities, the apartments, the plumbing, the wiring, and so forth, and all of that uses metals. And it's not by any means over. There's a large new middle class in China, but they're still very much less developed than anything like America or Canada even 100 years ago. So a long way to go. A lot of metal consumption yet to be seen, and this will drive metal prices, especially silver, because of course silver spans the gamut, for a long time to come. I'm very bullish on all metals, particularly silver.
Is it any surprise that at this time in history, when silver is in such short supply and the entire world is relying more and more on silver, that it appears that the silver bull market is indeed gathering steam? Beyond these economic factors, there is yet another powerful catalyst that our experts report is likely to drive the silver bull market even higher.
Over the course of history, all great societies have eventually created unsustainable amounts of debt. And because of that, governments are forced to print money. And if you look at the circumstances that currently exist here in the United States, you've heard about the stock bubble, you've heard about the housing bubble. Nobody is really talking about the debt bubble that exists. Our government has a published debt of $8.5 trillion, but if you add in additional liabilities such as Social Security, Medicare, pension guarantee programs, it's estimated to be upwards of $45 trillion. Then if you add in federal, state, municipalities, county, consumer, corporate, our debt load right now is close to being at the $50 trillion level. There is absolutely no way for this country to exist unless we continue to print money.
It is imperative to understand that paper currencies depreciate. I think it's easily said this way, that paper money becomes worth less, and then it becomes worthless. Now, based on that premise, if we go back to what happened in the 1980s, early 1980, we had silver that went roughly from the $2 level in the early 70s up to $50 an ounce for a 25-fold increase. Right now, what we have is a money supply increase from 1980 to right now of about 7 times as much. Well, silver reached $50 an ounce when there was 1.5 billion ounces more available to the market than there is now.
There's only $800 billion in America in cash. And out of that, we somehow get an $11 trillion economy. We have the personal debt of the United States, people about $30 trillion. There is a derivative hedge book out there of $450 trillion. We have a current account deficit of $800 billion a year. We've got a budget deficit alone of $600 billion, and that's not even most of it. The majority of federal spending comes in supplemental requests and off-budget things, and it comes out to over $1 trillion per year in an $11 trillion economy. How can you do that? That's the part that's so staggering to me, that people actually believe this will work out. It cannot. It never has, and it never will.
The government is going to have to take on more and more debt to keep this game going. So, I mean, I think deficits, which appear to be high now, are going materially higher, which again is good for precious metals.
I do feel that there has to be a sort of hangover after the party, and we've seen a situation here where the United States has built up huge debts in its own currency, where the US dollar has weakened somewhat, but arguably hasn't really paid the full price for the profligacy that has taken place over the last few years, and in fact continues today in terms of the size of the current account deficit. Foreigners have been persuaded to essentially part with their wealth in return for US IOUs, and I'm not at all convinced that that can continue for very much longer. And I think what we're beginning to see are probably that system of funding of US overconsumption, be it by government or by the private sector, by consumers, ending. I think we're perhaps now entering the final phase of the dollar's unchallenged primacy.
Today, there's a brand new element of silver demand, which is investment demand. And we didn't have that in much of the last 15 or 16 years. There's a new ETF, which is an exchange-traded fund, which has consumed over 100 million ounces of silver, I think, in the last 5 or 6 months. Gigantic amount of new silver demand. That's one of the reasons the silver price has gone up.
Well, in silver, I think investment demand has really been the primary reason why silver prices really have done so exceptionally well. In fact, silver has outperformed gold. I think a great deal of interest in silver really as an alternative investment to bonds and equities, and it's been quite a good investment this year.
You look at the largest pension plans in the world, you look at the largest endowments in the world, and all of the sudden in the last 4 to 6 years, commodities have become an asset class for those funds. And of course, within the commodities, precious metals plays a part, and that's a change that's occurring that wasn't there 5 years ago, and those guys going into precious metals has huge positive implications for the price.
You can think about it as like the ocean is like the general money supply, and you might think of gold as like an Olympic-sized swimming pool, and you might think of silver as being a kid's wading pool. A little bit of water in that wading pool will move it up in that wading pool very quickly. An Olympic pool takes a little more. But, you know, we're talking about an ocean's worth of capital floating around, not knowing what to do, scared capital that's shifting around, looking for the best opportunity. When a little bit of that ocean starts floating into that Olympic pool, and then some of that spills over into the wading pool, where do you think those markets are going to go? Is the dollar buying you the same today as it was 5 years ago, 2 years ago? What's your gasoline bill look like? Is what's taking place in your life, are you feeling wealthy, or are you more concerned about your financial health? We have got a world now that once this consciousness gets into the public, that they've got to protect themselves, they've got to do something with some percentage of their savings, and they start moving into this in a significant way, I think it's not going to be just a United States phenomena. I think it's going to be a worldwide phenomena.
In a time of inflation, I think silver will protect people's money more than gold will, because silver goes up more than gold does during boom markets in gold and silver. Right now the ratio is about 50 to 1, where it's 50 ounces of silver will buy you 1 ounce of gold. But the historic ratio between the two, which we've returned to a couple times in a couple other bull markets, was about 15 to 1.
So let's look at the gold-silver ratio for 3 specific periods over the last century when silver made historic advances. In 1914, as World War I began, the gold-to-silver ratio was 41 to 1. By the end of the war, the ratio was 15 to 1. In 1941, early in World War II, the gold-to-silver ratio was 96 to 1. By 1967, it was once again 16 to 1. In 1975, in the midst of an oil crisis, the gold-to-silver ratio was 40 to 1. By 1979, it was at 14 to 1. In July of 2003, the gold-to-silver ratio was 77 to 1. Today, that ratio is approximately 50 to 1.
I believe at the top of the market, you're probably going to see what I call the classic ratio, which is a 16 to 1 ratio. And then you go from an 80 to 1 ratio to a 16 to 1 ratio, you basically outperform gold on a 4 to 1 basis, which is basically what happened in the 1970s. Not a 4 to 1, but a much better performance by silver to gold. So again, I think you probably should own both, but if you definitely want a high flyer in your portfolio, silver must be included in it.
This is the greatest opportunity you can possibly imagine. This is one of those once in several lifetimes. Your grandfather didn't have this opportunity. His grandfather did not have this opportunity. You do. It is so grossly underpriced. It's selling at a 50th the price of gold. Less than a 50th. It should be selling between a 15th and a 10th of gold historically, the price of gold.
I really expect that there's a good chance that silver could go above the 15 to 1 ratio, because that's a historic ratio. And in the other historic time periods, we haven't run out of silver almost like we have today. And furthermore, the overabundance of paper money now is greater than it has ever been. And so in the next run-up, it's going to be the run-up of all run-ups, like you can't possibly imagine or predict or compare with history.
And that's what's going to happen in the silver market. It's a much tighter market than gold, and it's more affordable than gold, and it's better known than gold. What you're going to find is a paper price on silver that is absolutely going to be unbelievable at the peak of this market. I cannot be or emphasize how bullish I am on the silver market long term. We're at the growth phase now, where you get maximum participation by the public that's waking up, money managers, hedge fund managers, and managed money. They're all coming in the market. I just came back from Wall Street recently, and I don't think they get it yet, which is great. It means that the average investor should be taking a clear position now in this opportunity. For the average investor, I think you should buy real silver. You should buy it now, and you should hold it with an outlook of at least 5 years. But I think it's the one investment that's probably not only the best investment, but it's probably the best overall investment from the standpoint is you're buying real money, you're buying something historically known, you're buying something that's negotiable worldwide, and you're buying something that is in high demand in all kinds of aspects on a worldwide basis, and it's not going away.
Silver has been so cheap for so long that everyone expects that's the way it normally is. It's not. This part of time and space is an aberration in the history of precious metals, particularly silver. Silver is selling so cheap in comparison to gold, which is so cheap in comparison to the economic imbalances, that it is staggering to the imagination. The only good thing about this whole thing is that the gross ignorance and stupidity of the majority of investors means that the asset is so underpriced that those who get in now, before those people understand the error of their ways, will make gigantic amounts of money when silver does get back to its normalized, everyday, precious metal price. It is the poor man's gold.
I think the outlook for silver prices, continues to be good for easily another decade or so.
There's a great potential for explosive growth in the price of silver.
This thing should be selling for over 100 right now, but it's not. What a bargain!
The silver bullion right now seems to be going up by a rate of about 30% per year, and I see no reason for that to stop.
And what we're looking at right now is we are looking at all of these catalysts converging simultaneously in the silver market that could propel the price of this metal to heights that we can only begin to imagine.
Again, for most people, I would recommend that they get more silver than they're comfortable holding, and then what you've got is good.
Well, you know, I'm asked this question a lot. It's surprising. How much should I have? And they give me lots of statistics about how much money they have, where their money is, blah, 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 blah. I tell them, go out and buy 100 ounces. Go to bed. When you wake up tomorrow, think to yourself, is that enough? And if it's not, buy some more. Go to bed. Wake up tomorrow morning. Think to yourself, do I have enough? If the answer is no, buy some more. There will be one morning when you wake up and you will ask yourself that question and you will say, yes, I have enough. And that is the answer.
I think silver definitely has something to recommend itself to an investor who is prepared, I think, to follow the market quite closely, to monitor a position quite closely, because, as I said, it's a volatile metal and you need to be on top of what you're doing, perhaps, but there is scope for bigger moves than in the case of gold.
As far as I can see, most of the above ground inventories are gone. And when we reach that inflection point, the price is going to skyrocket.
Now that you have the facts on the exceptional investment opportunity in silver, it's time to introduce you to Monex, the company that has established itself as America's preeminent precious metals firm. By specializing in precious metals alone and dedicating itself to providing a high level of customer service and client support, Monex has earned its reputation as America's trusted name in precious metals for nearly 40 years.
We pride ourselves at the trust that our customers have in us. When you do over $25 billion of transactions, you have to feel very confident that customers have chosen you for a very good reason. And that, I think, is in our industry, in precious metals and investments, people want to know who they deal with. They want to have the confidence to know that when they're making an investment, it's something that they know and they can trust.
If you call up and it's your first time calling Monex, you're going to get directly to an account representative whose job and profession it is to walk people through the process of dealing with precious metals and the many different ways you can do it. So you're going to talk to a professional that's going to find out what you want to accomplish and show you a way to get that done. People either want to protect what they have or enhance it. And that's why they call us.
When you deal with Monex, you deal with a firm that has been specializing in metal and metal alone for 40 plus years. We don't represent 50 or 60 different products. We don't represent thousands of different stocks. All we do, and we do it very well, is we sell and we buy precious metal. Gold, silver, been our specialty for all of that 40-year period. Now, over the last few years, we have done a massive amount of business in gold, but for the last 2 decades, Monex has specialized in helping customers speculate in the silver market. And we have done it by being on the cutting edge as far as information is concerned. We have great information sources. We are connected around the world to develop a foundation of information that allows the individual investor to basically be on the cutting edge as far as not only technical aspects of the market, but the fundamental aspects of the market, so they can make prudent investment decisions.
We'd like to express our sincere thanks for the participation and commentary provided by the following guests who were interviewed for Why Silver, Why Now? David Morgan, author, economist, and precious metals analyst. You may contact Mr. Morgan at silver-investor.com. Philip Clapwick of GFMS, the world's foremost precious metals consultancy. You may contact Mr. Clapwick at gfms-metals-consulting.com. Ross Beatty, chairman of Pan American Silver Corporation. You may contact Mr. Beatty at panamericansilver.com. Phillips Baker, the CEO of Hecla Mining and president of the Silver Institute. You may contact Mr. Baker at Hecla-mining.com. From Pinellas Park, Florida, the Chief Operating Officer of the Smith Consultant Group and noted author and publisher Richard Doughty, widely known as the Mogambo Guru. You may contact Mr. Doughty at richardsmithgroup@verizon.net. We'd also like to thank Jason Hummel, editor, publisher, and precious metals analyst. You may contact Mr. Hummel through his website, silverstockreport.com. From Toronto, Ontario, John Embry, Chief Investment Strategist for Sprott Asset Management. You may contact Mr. Embry at sprott.com. And Patricia Moore, Vice President and Economist for Scotiabank in Toronto. You may contact Ms. Moore at scotiabank.com. And from Spokane, Washington, Vice President of Mines Management, Doug Dobbs. You may contact Mr. Dobbs at minesmanagement.com. If you would like additional copies of Why Silver, Why Now, you may call Monex at 1-800-804-1933.
This special report, Why Silver, Why Now, has been brought to you by Monex, America's trusted name in precious metals for nearly 40 years.